Peruvian Congress removes Lady Camones as its president after a plotting conversation between her and the leader of another opposition party leaked. Liz Truss formally assumed her role as the United Kingdom's 56th Prime Minister after meeting with Her Majesty the Queen at Balmoral. At least 2 people were killed and 10 are reported missing after typhoon Hinnamnor made landfall early on Tuesday in South Korea. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The Peruvian Congress approved on Monday a motion of censure to remove Lady Camones as its president after a conversation between her and the leader of the Alianza para el Progreso, the Progress Alliance Party, was leaked. Camones was accused of usurpation of functions, illegal sponsorship, and peddling. The motion against her, promoted by several senators, passed with 61 votes in favor, 47 against, and 5 abstentions. The Peruvian Congress must now call for an election to fill up the vacancy. In the leaked recorded conversation, Camones commits to speeding up the passing of a piece of legislation that will have given Cesar Acuña, other opposition regional candidate by the Trujillo department, an advantage at the polls. Venezuelan authorities confiscated close to 3 tons of drugs, the largest seizure in the last decade. The chief of the Strategic Operational Command of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces, Domingo Hernandez Lares, offered a press conference in which he detailed the development of the anti-drug operation carried out by the Venezuelan government. General-in-Chief Hernandez Lares explained that they captured a fishing boat with 12 crew members on board where they found the illicit cargo of marijuana and cocaine. Likewise, the chief of the command indicated that the case was placed at the disposition of the country's General Prosecutor's Office. The chief of the Strategic Operational Command of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces, Domingo Hernandez Lares, stressed that this drug seizure is the largest in the last 10 years.
Drugs, specifically marijuana, is the largest in the last 10 years, since 2012. And I also wanted to highlight, in the fight against the scourge of drugs, in the national territory, since 2012, we have disabled 305 aircrafts also operating for drug trafficking, aircrafts that come from abroad and turn off their transponders, turn off their signals without identification codes, create clandestine runways with accomplices, land and use our territory.
And mothers who lost their children to gunshots called for the government of the United States, to do more to end the gun violence. Last year alone, in Chicago, more than 50 children were shot and killed. Gun violence figures in 2021 were the deadliest for the city in a quarter of a century. In all, police data showed that there were more than 3,000 shooting incidents in Chicago, including nearly 800 homicides. Further media reviews found nearly 300 children under the age of 28 were shot, leading to more than 50 deaths.
Asking my personal opinion, bring in the National Guard. Children are dying every single day. Children are dying here. Bring in the National Guard. Bring us help. We need help. We need this to be controlled. We need it to be contained.
Now we move on to other topics. Russia denounced that 15 artillery attacks were registered in the last 24 hours by the Ukrainian army against the locality of Energodar, where the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant is located. The Russian Ministry of Defense informed that the radioactive situation at the nuclear power plant remains normal and stated that the provocations of the Kiev forces to create a threat of a technological catastrophe continue. The military and the civilian authorities in the region said that the offensive damaged a power line near the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. As a result of the attack, was disrupting the power supply in a large part of the city and reducing the capacity of the 6 units of the nuclear power plant. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. Liz Truss formally assumed her role as the United Kingdom's 56th Prime Minister after meeting with Her Majesty the Queen at Balmoral on Tuesday. The head of the Conservative Party became the nation's 3rd female leader after defeating Rishi Sunak in the party's leadership contest. At Balmoral, Queen Elizabeth II invited Truss to form a new government. She is likely to begin unveiling new cabinet appointments, with Kwasi Kwarteng listed to be the next chancellor. The new Prime Minister faces the immediate challenge of coming up with a package of support to help households during the cost of living crisis. The Premier promised big tax cuts to boost economic growth, including reversing the rise in national insurance.
And I know that Liz Truss and this compassionate Conservative government will do everything we can to get people through this crisis, and this country will endure it, and we will win. And if Putin thinks that he can succeed by blackmailing or bullying the British people, then he is utterly deluded. And the reason we will have those funds now and in the future is because we Conservatives understand the vital symmetry between government action and free market, capitalist, private sector enterprise.
Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that the intransigence of the new British Prime Minister Liz Truss will be of little help in strengthening the international position of the UK. At a press conference in Moscow, Lavrov issued his first comments on the appointment of Liz Truss as UK's Prime Minister. The Russian Foreign Minister said he does not consider that Truss's promotion will help preserve or strengthen the international position of the United Kingdom, clearly weakened following the Brexit. Lavrov went on to raise the personal dispute Truss has started with French President Emmanuel Macron when she was Foreign Minister.
Liz Truss. I met with her when she was the head of the Foreign Office in this building at the beginning of the year. She has her own principles that regard the irreconcilability of advocating Britain's interests with considering the positions of others, with any aim to seek compromises. I don't think this will help maintain or strengthen the position of this country on the international arena, which has obviously taken a hit since exiting the European Union.
In the Italian city of Naples, demonstrators burned gas and electricity bills in the center of the city to protest against the increase in energy and food prices. Most of the protesters are part of the Scampi Unemployed movement, a social movement bringing together residents of the suburbs of Naples. They gathered in front of the main post office, and from there they marched over the town hall to complain about the sharp increase in the cost of living in recent months. Protesters argue that the crisis in Ukraine is being given more attention than the situation of underprivileged Italian citizens.
Politics does not give a damn about citizens. Media are giving fake news as the increase of GDP, unemployment decreasing. Where do they see this? They only care about their business and war. They will create a new pandemic to earn more money. They are cutting the unemployment benefits. They are basically telling us to go and steal. They are forcing us to become burglars.
The Iranian government said that it can meet most of the energy demands of the European countries if the United States lifts its unilateral sanctions, and an agreement is reached during the negotiations on the nuclear deal.
Iran's feedback is constructive, transparent, and reasonable. If the other side involved has the political will, the parties can accomplish the negotiation and reach an agreement upon such a basis in a short period of time.
And the Israeli army acknowledged for the first time that Shireen Abu Akleh, a Palestinian-American journalist killed in May in Palestine, likely shot by an Israeli soldier, but it stopped short of definitely accepting responsibility for her death. The declaration came nearly 4 months after the Al Jazeera journalist was shot in the head on May 11th while covering an Israeli army raid in Jenin, a Palestinian city, prompting international outrage. The shift in the army's position followed Palestinian claims of a cover-up, as well as several independent investigations that found Abu Akleh was killed by a bullet fired from the approximate location of an Israeli convoy. Evidence reviewed by the investigators showed that there were no armed Palestinians near her when she was shot. After the Israeli army acknowledged for the first time that Shireen Abu Akleh, a Palestinian-American Al Jazeera journalist, was likely shot by an Israeli soldier in May, a spokesperson for the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem said the army's report on the murder is a cover-up.
Israel did not carry out an investigation, but part of the cover-up mechanism of the military law enforcement system. It was not by accident. This is the policy.
And now we have other stories. In Somalia alone, about 7.8 million people face critical levels of hunger. Humanitarian agencies have been alerting that the situation across the Horn of Africa is likely to deteriorate with a likely fifth failed rainy season. The World Food Programme Deputy Director for Somalia, Baimankai Sankoh, said it is not possible to wait for a normal declaration of famine to act. The United Nations warned on Monday that the African country was on the brink of famine for the second time in just over a decade, and that time was running out to save lives. The unprecedented failure of 4 consecutive rainy seasons, decades of conflict, mass displacement, and the severe economic issues have pushed many people to the brink of famine. Millions are at risk of starvation across the Horn of Africa, which is in the grip of the worst drought in 4 decades after 4 failed rainy seasons wiped out livestock and crops.
Famine in Somalia is closer than ever. It's an imminent reality if we do not act immediately. As WFP, we know from experience that we cannot wait for a formal declaration of famine to act. So for months, we have been working to scale up our life-saving support in Somalia. We are reaching more people than we've ever had before. 3.7 million people with relief, and more than double the number that we have reached in April. Over 300,000 with nutrition support. Famine in
And TeleSUR will dedicate its coverage of the Football World Cup Qatar 2022 to the figure of Diego Armando Maradona, who accompanied our crew in the last 2 World Cups. With the football star, we also toured our continent with the show The Zurda Viajero. We want this tribute to have its own music. With that in mind, we invite you to write or compose a song for TeleSUR's coverage of Qatar 2022 Football World Cup. It must be an original song, never recorded before or published in any media, and free of legal attachments. Record the song in any format, WAV, MP3, even with your cell phone, and send it as an attachment to comunicaciones@telesurtv.net with the following information: author's name, nationality, and the title of the song. The closing date of the call for entries is September 10th, 2022. A jury of prestigious musicians and composers from the region will select the winning piece. The prize will be the recording of the song, a video clip, and the wide diffusion of the work. 1 week after the closing of the call, TeleSUR will announce the results. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. At least 2 people were killed and 10 are reported missing after Typhoon Hinnamnor made landfall early on Tuesday in South Korea. The storm entered the island of Jeju before reaching the city of Busan with large waves and heavy rains that damaged roads and seaside stores. 66,000 homes lost power. Ahead of the storm, more than 600 schools were closed. Thousands of people were evacuated and airlines grounded some 250 domestic flights, although service gradually resumed as the typhoon headed towards Japan. Typhoon Hinnamnor is among the 8 strongest typhoons in South Korea's history in terms of winds, but not the most powerful ever to reach it. It passed through faster than the forecast, causing less damage than expected. And also on Monday, Mexican authorities reported 3 people dead after the passage of Hurricane K along the Mexican Pacific coast. K, which is expected to intensify to Category 2 on the Saffir-Simpson scale this Tuesday, also damaged homes, uprooted the trees, and led to rivers overflowing in the state of Guerrero. Winds gusts of up to 90 to 110 kilometers per hour and waves of 3 to 5 meters occur in the coasts of Colima, Jalisco, and Michoacán, also on the coast of Nayarit and Sinaloa. According to the National Hurricane Center forecasts, tropical storm conditions are expected in Baja California Peninsula on Wednesday in the U.S., as K could intensify in the next 24 hours. In Pakistan, over the weekend, villagers around Lake Manshar in the southern part of the country were evacuated before engineers cut into the lake's embankment to release rising flood water to limit damage. The displaced villagers are complaining that it's been 3 days already and that they have not received any assistance from any authority and that they are sleeping under the open sky. Floods have affected more than 3.3 million people and the devastation has caused $10 billion losses in damage, according to official estimates. The provinces of Punjab, Sindh, Baluchistan, and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa have been the most affected. Most of the fatalities have been women and children. Last week, the U.S. announced $30 million in aid for Pakistani flood victims. And rescuers searched through the rubble of remote villages in mountainous southwestern China on Tuesday in a race to find survivors of an earthquake that claimed dozens of lives, that hundreds of people believed stranded or missing. The magnitude 6.6 quake hit about 43 kilometers southeast of the city of Kandin in Sichuan province at a depth of 10 kilometers on Monday. At least 66 people were killed, with more than 200 still cut off from rescuers in a remote area. The Ministry of Water reported that hydropower stations were damaged by the quake, while more than 11,000 people have been evacuated from areas prone to landslides or building collapse. China's Meteorological Administration has warned that the quake-stricken areas will experience significant rainfall until Thursday. Authorities in China recorded the country's hottest August since the records began, following an unusually intense summer heat wave that dried out the rivers, burned the crops, and triggered isolated blackouts. Southern China last month suffocated under what experts said may have been one of the worst heat waves in global history, with temperatures in parts of Sichuan province and the mega city of Chongqing soaring well above 40 degrees Celsius for days. State broadcaster CCTV reported the average temperature nationwide was 22.4 Celsius in August, exceeding the norm by 1.2 Celsius. Scientists said extreme weather such as heat waves, droughts, and flash floods is becoming more frequent and intense due to the human-induced climate change. A fire in the Brazilian national park from yet unknown causes is producing large clouds of smoke in the central region of the reserve, which has 42,000 hectares of savanna where endangered species such as tapirs, deer, jaguars, among others live.
We have a fire that was started in the middle of the reserve, near the dam, and the cause, although we don't officially know what it is yet, is most probably human action.
Here, we shelter endangered fauna and flora. For example, it is the main core area that provides the gain flow for this endangered fauna, such as the armadillo, the tapir, the deer, the puma. We have registered jaguars here inside the park. So a fire of great propensity directly affects these animals by directly killing them, by scaring them away, or by burning their natural habitat.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. And now you can also follow us on TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.